It's always a challenge for the person who is experiencing a loved one being removed. It's always challenging. I've said this before. You can have faith and you can know what the Bible teaches and you can be sure that your loved ones are with the Lord, but it doesn't take away the hurt or the void. Somebody who you're with every day or you talk to on the phone, then suddenly they're not there. Probably about 2 weeks ago, I was talking to somebody about this. Leave it to me to come up with the weirdest things to say because it kind of settled in this way. As we were talking about people who've been promoted and people who just, do you remember that individual? Do you remember that person? That person, that person, that person? Yeah. But that's kind of what is interesting about the ministry is you constantly see people being promoted. You see new life being brought into the world, but you see people being promoted all the time. And if a person is really solid in their faith, you're going to feel the void or the loss, but at the same time, I keep thinking to myself, there's a whole band of people who have gone before me, who've already made the trip. They're already there. I too will make the trip. So it's not as though they've left me. They've just gone before me. And as you read the scriptures, what Christ says about, faithing in Him, you have the promise of life eternal. It means that, this has a period of time attached to it that says whatever that time is, and then there is no more time here, but eternity it's endless. So when I read about folks who are in a time of difficulty with their family and their loved ones, it's really important for you to go back and read those passages where Christ is specifically talking. And let's just even focus, that one that comes to my mind is where He's speaking to Mary and Martha regarding Lazarus. And that whole passage has to do with not just bringing Lazarus forth because he could, but about life eternal. And let that be a meditation for you while you go through a time of processing the individual not being there anymore, but the certainty that you have is that when Christ said that specific thing about life eternal, He meant it. He didn't say if you can or if you will. This is what trusting and faithing in Him completely is. Your salvation and eternity with Him in His presence. So although I pray for these folks in the void, but I also pray that the Lord fill your heart with joy and rejoicing in the knowledge that if these individuals had pain and suffering, they're not suffering anymore. And in fact, the thing that is true is that we're left here in a weird way to suffer our own. They're not suffering, it's we who still kind of think, reflect. We were left with the impact of the person's suffering, their sickness, or whatever came on them. But even that has to be brought in front of the Lord because that individual's not here anymore. And you ask the Lord to take that, even the things that are a heavy burden, the things you saw, the things you experienced, and you bring them to Him so He can begin a healing process for you. It's one thing to say, I know where I'm going, and I know my loved ones are going there too, but there's the healing process for we who remain. It's like me telling you the story of having watched Dr. Scott suffer. It was difficult for me. It was so difficult for me that I spent a good deal of time. I didn't have any issue or any problem with heaven and eternity and even death and dying, but the suffering part that you experience with that individual, That was difficult. And you have to really lean on the Lord and ask the Lord for healing for you now. But we're lifting you up in prayer specifically for the Lord to heal your heart and your mind and come to perfect peace about everything that is contained in the Bible that the Lord said regarding death and dying, heaven and life eternal. For these things are true. God is not a man to lie. We put our trust implicitly there and depend on the Lord completely for the healing that must come now into your heart and into your mind regarding these things. So we'll be lifting you up in prayer in Jesus' name. Get on the telephone.